going to start the recording, and then, yep, I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Okay, I actually have one question.
Yep, good.
Uh, is there gonna be like a VOD I can review after this, or
Yeah, so I'm currently recording it so that you can go back afterwards and view it anytime you want to. So, yep.
okay? Thank you.
What is
Kind
it? What's the balloons there? What the,
of,
are
it
there,
must be a spectator bug.
I don't, like, I don't feel like there's, I know the spot you're in. I don't remember there being balloons, so I'm confused now.
Yeah, me neither.
No, you just popped one, so I guess that's in
Yeah.
game.
Go. I'll keep you healed.
Huh, I wonder if when they change that. Alright, so the first thing I'm noticing is just make sure anytime we have a lull in time where there's not very much to do, that we're reloading. Here we take
Mhm.
some
Go.
shots,
I'll
and of
keep you
course
healed.
we're healing people or critical, so that's fine. And then after they're all healed up and nobody really needs us, like we can look top left and nobody's low HP, we're sitting down 4 shots, and this is where we just reload. That way we actually have all our ammo for next time if we actually do need, if someone else does need healing. But here we just kind of sit and we sit and we sit right, and then we keep shooting on nothing, and then finally we reload, right? So it's just
Yeah.
reloading a little bit earlier. Okay, so we do try to chuck the aggressive ante, so I like that. Nice sleep.
This is going to hurt.
Okay, I like already that we're going for the aggressive anti-nades. That's really, really good.
Get back in the fight.
Usually that's one of the things I have to drill into people, is to go for those.
Mhm.
Alright, so first fight, pretty solid. First nade that we threw was intercepted, so hopefully that's not something that continues, but if it is, then we'll, talk about how we can look to land nades a little bit better.
Okay.
If those balloons are in your way, just punch them, man. just,
They
just
weren't in
take
my
them.
way in the in the in
What?
the
I
in the
mean, you're,
game.
huh. That's interesting, because, I mean, you're shooting at them, and then you're like, it looks
Yeah.
like you're jumping over them. But in any case, I mean,
It's
huh.
really weird. I don't remember those weren't in the game. So maybe because I have my settings turned all the way down.
I mean, I do too. I have mine all the way low.
Okay.
ده هيكون مؤلم. نامي.
Alright. So they have a Sombra. Sombra's on top of us.
You're covered.
Alright, we're gonna talk. So we're 2 minutes. I think we're gonna have to talk about when to use our different types of scopes, because that's something I'm noticing as well, just right off the bat here. So,
Okay.
for now, we'll skip. I
Never.
guess we'll add in quick
I keep
scoping.
you
But in any case, as Ana, you have
healed.
3 different types of scoping. You have your unscope, you have your hard scope, and you have your quick scope, right? Or hard
Mhm.
scoping can just use cultoscope, right? So
Yeah.
those are the 3 different types. I'm noticing a little bit of misuse between them, so we'll discuss like when you're supposed to be using all 3. Essentially, we'll go over the strengths, weaknesses, so that you understand when which is good, right? So unscoping, you keep mobility because you can you can move normally, and you keep visibility because you can see normally. But that's which is going to be really good for you at a close range, especially, right? But
Yeah.
when you scope in, you're going to lose that mobility, so now you're moving a lot slower, and you're going to lose visibility so that you're zoomed in, which is very good at a longer range, but not very good when something's right next to you, because you just lose out on being able to see things. But when something's further away, that's going to allow you to be more accurate and precise. This is also going to give you lowered sensitivity, which again is going to help you at a range. And then it's also going to be an instant shot, which again is going to help you at a range, whereas an unscoped shot is a projectile, which is going to be a lot harder to hit at a distance because of how the nature of projectiles are harder to hit, because you have to predict at a longer range, right? So that means that essentially we use unscoped when we're close to things, scoped when we're far away from things. And usually the rough range in which you're using, and this is a little bit flexible depending on the person, but the rough range you're using is between this range on a squishy target, so anything that's not a tank, or you are unscoping, right?
Okay.
Anything past that, you are scoping, because it's just going to be the most effective way to hit them. Anything then on a tank, they have a little bit bigger hitboxes. You can move up to 15 meters, right?
Okay.
Unscoping, and then anything past that is scoped, right? And anything within that within these probably shouldn't be scoped, right? I'm seeing a lot of scoping when we're like within this distance. We're scoping when like we're pretty close to people when we probably should be just unscoping on them. And we're also sometimes unscoping when we're a little bit too far away. So we're mixing those up a little bit. And then quick scoping, I haven't seen too much of that yet. Like I haven't been taking a look at it either. But we'll just go over real quick of when that's useful.
Okay.
Basically, you get a little bit of both worlds. You keep your visibility and mobility, and you also get the instant shot, but it's a lot slower of a fire rate, which means that you're not going to want to be using this all the time. Instead, you're just going to use it in some specific instances, mainly when you're under pressure and trying to shoot people at a distance, right? So let's say have people shooting at us, or we have a tracer or Genji on top of us or something like that, right? And somebody all the way over there is critical HP. We can be quick scoping them and healing them up while not making it super easy for them to shoot at us. Which if we sit here and scope, it's gonna be super easy for them to headshot us and shoot us, right? Just
Yeah.
because we're gonna be sacrificing mobility and visibility, right? And then if we try to unscope it, we can do that at a close range, but not at a far range, because it's just be very ineffective. And then finally, the other way that you would use quick scoping is when you're trying to take space without like slowing down while still hitting shots. So that'd be like if you're walking back from spawn, right, and you have teammates up there who need healing. You wouldn't sit here and unscope because it'd be too inaccurate, but you wouldn't sit here and scope because you'd be moving forwards like at a snail's pace. In which case they can just run around the corner, right? But if we quick scope while we're approaching, we can approach fast, and then once we get close enough, then we can unscope, right?
Could you
Hmm?
would you recommend like at your 15-meter range right there, quick scoping, say if there's a tracer on you and you're trying to
Um,
move around and
yeah.
also
Mhm.
because I'll quick scope more than I unscope some of the times just because I feel like my unscope shots are inconsistent because of the projectile nature.
Yeah,
And
so like how I would say it works is you're going to want to get used to your unscope just because it's more effective for all the advantages it gives you over quick scoping, particularly in the fact that you shoot a whole heck of a lot faster when you're doing
yeah,
just unscoped like this. You can see the fire rate versus when we're quick scope, you have to wait for the entire animation, in which case you're firing a lot of, like almost half the speed. So
yep,
you're gonna want to get used to it within ranges. But if you're like at 15 meters, that's fine, right? That's the range at which any range at which scoping is fine is where you're probably gonna be quick scoping too, right?
okay,
But quick scoping is not gonna be used too often. But I would get used to doing unscope shots just because it can be very
Justice
useful
delivered.
anywhere like kind of within this area, right?
got it.
Actually, one other thing, just since we're in here, and usually it's just a techie thing that people don't know. I've only seen like a minute of your gameplay, so I mean, I don't technically have a
Never
way to know
stop
that you know
fighting
it,
for
but
what you believe
um,
in.
we'll go for it. But just a quick tech thing for
Not
Ana here,
mine.
right? Of just how you can look to land effective nades at a range is you first off want to make sure you're scoping in. This doesn't work if you're unscoped. Then you're going to take your ultimate charge and you're gonna line that up with an enemy, and your nade will hit them
This will
from
only
any
hurt for a
height,
minute.
any range that you're at, right?
Ah,
Yep.
oh, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep. It's not going to be useful like when you're right next to them. But
Yeah,
when you're a little bit further away, that's really useful. When we're on even footing with them, or they're a little bit below us like this, we're going to aim it at our Q,
okay.
rather than just our ult charge, and then that's going to hit them.
ده هيكون
Oh,
مؤلم.
Okay.
cool.
All right. So we're on Blizzard roll there.
Welcome to Blizzard. Ready for battle.
Name it. You're covered.
So like here is the distance in which I would say, okay, on a Zarya, maybe don't need to be scoping from that distance.
Okay.
Maybe not too necessary. Um, actually, wait, oh, you're two. Okay. All right. So nades. So far, I'm not gonna go too far in depth on them yet, but so far I really like they're going for anti-nades very consistently, and we're looking for them, which is really really good because anti-nades are really great carrying potential to hit if we hit them, but we haven't been hitting them, which is the issue. We've
Yeah,
thrown like 4 so far. I'm not gonna count these 2 from the high ground, like from these, or I'm not gonna count those, but besides those, we've thrown like 4-ish, and we've gotten maybe like 1 or 2 single purples.
yeah.
When quite honestly, these are pretty like decently like easy or nades. Like if we're from this high ground position, I like the positioning we're at, by the way. But in any case, we just want to make sure we're aiming these a little bit better. As a lot of times, the biggest thing I'm noticing is that we're just having things blocking our nades, and it seems like we're rushing them a little bit. So let's clarify this a little bit. When you're
Mhm.
looking for a nade, you have three possible things that can block your nades. Or I guess we can count four things, right? First, you have teammates. Then you have shields and tanking abilities, and then you have the tanks themselves. They can stop it from like hitting people behind them, and then you also have objects, right, which typically aren't too big of a deal, but they are if we're not paying attention to them.
Yeah.
But those are the main things that can block it, right? And we're looking to get past all of them. From this high ground positioning, this is really good, and this is going to allow us to land nades pretty effectively. We get over our team, and we have pretty good line of sights here. But we're just hitting things like previously when we chuck a nade, when we were trying to throw a nade this way, we hit like the boxes, and then when we're trying to throw a nade this way, we're about to end up hitting like the shield. So the big thing
Yeah.
is where we want to make sure that we're getting it around the things that can block it. So like for example, if we just tossed it like a couple inches to the right, now that's getting around the shield and hitting two people, right?
Mm.
We throw it a little bit to the left, we hit the Sigma, but we throw it, there, and then it hits nothing. And that's happened multiple times. So I really want to see us putting effort into actually landing it past things. And then that maybe means that we might not want to just chuck it in the second that we are looking for it. So here, let's like rewatch that. Um, and it seems as though we go straight from, okay, we're looking for it, we throw it, right? That's it. It took us about like 1 second max to line that up. And sometimes it will take you 1 second max to line it up, especially if it's a good one, but sometimes it won't. So take a couple extra seconds to, it's not extra seconds that you should be like AFKing. You can, be healing while you do it. You can be doing something else, but just make sure you're lining it up. Make sure it's actually connecting, because when it's consistently not connecting, that's the issue. And we want
Yeah.
to make sure it's actually hitting things, which at the moment is not.
Yeah, I think I have a big problem with tossing my nades like
Yeah.
off cooldown essentially.
Well, no problem off cooldown. That's no issue at all.
Yeah.
Like you want to be throwing them off cooldown, so you're getting max value out of them.
Hmm.
But if you're not taking time to line them up, and if you're trying to take time to line them up while also, getting them out there fast, you can also be thinking about how you're throwing it when you're a couple seconds away from nade. So, for example,
Yeah.
right here, when we're like 1 second away from nade, we could be thinking about how we're throwing it even before we get nade. In fact, it looks like that's what we're doing. Exactly, we throw a nade like as soon as we get it.
Hmm.
Um, which is fine, right? That's how you should be looking to use it, but we want to be putting in thought and effort into making sure it's connecting.
Take your man.
Oh, um, make sure we're not standing still. That's gonna make it super easy for people to shoot at us, and headshot us and kill us if we're standing still.
Yeah.
Instead, just constantly moving around, and then on top of that, also just make sure we're being aware both by listening and also paying attention. Because Hanzo kind of sneaks up right next to us. We stand still, and we stand still, and we stand still, and then therefore Hanzo kills us. Right? Make sure we're paying attention while also not standing still.
Okay.
And then now that means that, we're dead, we lose value, we couldn't get nano off, right? And then that potentially loses the fight that might have been winnable there.
Objective lost. Stop the payload.
Like, those nades are good, but that'd just be where you use the scope tech animation, or the scope tech to just land it effectively.
Yeah. I need to learn that. That's actually really smart.
Okay. Right, so here we had a ton of time to reposition, and I would probably like to see us repositioning up on the high ground, as this would be really good positioning. So why don't we talk about that real quick?
Okay.
So we're at 3 minutes and 25 seconds. We'll go back to the training range. On Ana, you have a couple different things with your positioning that are specific to Ana. To be honest, the other two aren't seeming like too big of an issue at the moment, so we can I'll list them off real quick, and then we don't have to go into depth on them. But the first one
Okay.
is, can I see my team? You have no issue with that. Second is, can the enemy team see us? Like, we don't want them to be able to just shoot at us for free. Not too much of an issue for now. But the third one is the one that we're trying to look at, so I would pay a lot of attention to this one, is, can I land nades and sleeps effectively, right? Which essentially comes down to off angles, right? So that means that if you're unfamiliar with the term, right, the enemy team standing there, our team is standing here. This is the main angle. An off angle would be like if we just went like this, right? So on the main angle, right, we have shields, tanks, our team, all in the way, right? 5 members of our
Yeah.
team, tons of different obstacles, right? Come to the side real quick. We've just gotten past our team, gotten past the shields, gotten past the tanks, straight into the back line, right? So we've just gotten the much easier nade. It's very safe and very fast, right? Another example would be if we're enemy team's there, we're here. This is the main angle. We just take a couple seconds, right? Couple seconds to run around, and now we're up on the high ground, right? Now we've gone around the team, around tanks, around the shields, right, straight to the back line. Now, like all high guns act as off angles as long as they're above them, right? This isn't an off angle from here to all the way there,
Yeah.
but it is an off angle if they're right below us here, right? And we want to make sure we're taking off angles, that way we can land effective nades, and I'll show you in game how we can be looking to do that. The one thing I would say though, just be careful we're not taking flanks, because there is a difference between a flank and an off angle. A flank would be if we went all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, all the way around, right? So a flank is long and or dangerous. This just took us twice as long, which put us outside of the fight, which meant that we can't heal up our team and we're not participating. And then it's also much more dangerous because we're probably going to die from here because we don't have nowhere to run. Whereas on a high ground, you have a ton of good positioning and survivability because it can't get to you and you have cover. And then when we're over here, we can just get back to our team very easily, right? So yes, off angles, no flanks, right? On
Okay.
Ana specifically. Some other characters you can, not on Ana. Yeah, we also want to make sure that you are taking the best positioning possible in between fights. So when fights are done and we're just have all the time in the world to do this, just rotate to the best possible positioning, which in this case would probably be the top right? So next fight is probably going to happen somewhere within this range, right? It's going to happen somewhere within here, right? So if we're positioning top right, we get off angle, right? So you can actually, in case you were unaware, you can hop up on top of this thing by running up this leg here. You can just basically just spam jump and then you're up, right? And you can also even get on top of this if you just run around and then jump up this side, right? And then you're up, and then you can just stand on top of this, King of the World, right? This gives you a really good angle anywhere from here, anywhere from this high ground. Gives you really good angles to land a nade or sleep, right? From on them from above. Really good angles that's gonna allow you to hit multiple people. Gets you around shields, around team, around tanks, right? On top of that, you can heal your team. You have a ton of visibility to heal your team, and you also have cover that you can use, which is this high ground, right? The high ground acts as cover because they can see us. Now they can't see us, right? When we back away from the ledge. So just take the high ground positioning in this instance. If they come up and pressure us, then we can just drop.
I've seen worse. You're going to live.
Okay. I'm noticing that sometimes we're sitting. This happened in the last fight too, and sometimes we're sitting at low HP and we're not doing anything about it. Last fight it was even lower than this. We were just kind of like at 120 or 140 or something like that for a really good chunk of the fight, and then now we're just sitting at 175 HP. So couple different things. Just make sure we're taking action steps. The first thing that you should be doing is pressing I need healing. This is gonna alert your other support and let them know Ana needs healing behind me. It's gonna give them an in-game audio cue to know where you are at, and will get you healing faster, guaranteed.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you have nade if you wanted to heal yourself up if you're really in between fights, and then also you have the health packs you can run to. Now here we're not near health packs, and here we might not want to use a nade if it's just 25 HP, but there's no issue at all and no problem at all if you just press the I need healing button, right? Which is probably what we should be doing.
Okay.
It also looked like we were about to rotate like right as the fight was beginning here.
Yeah, I was trying to get high ground, I think.
Yep. Which in that case we want to make sure that we're doing that in that last 15 seconds we had to do that, right?
Yeah.
Not right as the fight's beginning,
Right.
because
Exactly.
now we're trying to do it when the fight's starting, and now that's a big issue. All right. So let's see how long. All right, so the fight's done. Let's see how long we go without our ultimate. But so far, big thing with our ultimate is that we're not using it.
Yeah.
So 2 fights in a row that we haven't used it, and you want to make sure that you're actually using it because ults that aren't used don't get any value. So we want to make sure we're not holding on to it, which can become a problem if it's multiple fights in a row. The other thing I would say that is going to allow you to use it a bit better is make sure you're using your ultimate at the very beginning of fights, right? If you're using you get multiple benefits out of this. First off, ults that are used first generally get more value than ults that are used second. When, for
Okay.
example, Nano was used before, let's say they have a Nano and they use Nano before you use Nano, that means that Nano is probably going to get, get kills, get tanking value, get whatever. It's going to get its value immediately, and therefore it's going to put your team at a disadvantage, which means that if we use Nano second, we're already at a disadvantage, therefore our Nano doesn't do as much, right? Maybe we don't
Okay.
have, yeah, maybe, and then the other thing is that we might lose the fight before we get the chance to use it, right? Like in this example, with that, we've lost this fight pretty dang fast, which means that we don't get a chance to use Nano. If we had used Nano maybe earlier, that could prevent the fight from being lost and even swing it in our favor, which might actually win the fight while also giving us actually using our ultimate, right, and not being forced to hold on to it longer. So those are the 2 things: is just use your ult earlier. Don't use it before the fight's even begun, but use it right as the fight's beginning. Even like right as your team got shattered, that's an option too. Is just chucking a nano on a tank or something, right?
Yeah.
And then also just make sure we're not holding on to it, right?
You're covered. Get to you.
Okay, now, not big, massive thing yet, unless it keeps repeating itself, but just make sure that we're not chucking this nade here, because it's probably not necessary. She's being healed by Moira, she's being healed by you, and she is also, around the corner from people who are shooting at her, so
Yeah.
we want to be aware of her health bar and aware of, her positioning and who's healing her. Here we could very easily just normal heal her up and be fine. So in this situation, it's not needed, which then therefore we can use need for something else. Keep in mind that just because somebody is low does not mean that they are in danger. Somebody could be critical and over here, are they in danger?
No.
No, because there's much more that goes into being in danger than just being critical. So just identify those things that put someone in danger. Are they out in the open? Are they, in the middle of the enemy team? Do they have people looking at them? Right. And then therefore adjust whether or not you need the nade or not. Also, we're kind of standing out in the open unnecessarily here when we probably should be behind cover, which could potentially get us killed. So just
Get to
two
you.
two tinier things, you
Okay.
know, Okay, I like the positioning. Honestly, positioning so far, besides our off-angling and not rotating earlier, has been looking pretty solid. Like, this is a good off-angle. We just want to make sure we're utilizing it. Like, there
Yeah.
we just like stared dead on to like a perfect nade and then just kind of ignored it. Dude, we had nade, right? Yeah, we had nade here. Right, we
So
kind of look at this, right? We just peeked this edge here, stared at 1, 2, 3, 4 people grouped up in a little ball with no shield in the way and no obstacles, and then just kind of pass it up, right? This is a
yikes.
perfect opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And then only to just have it hit nothing, right?
I will.
So just make sure we're putting a lot of effort into that. Um,
You're powered up. Get in there.
Nade coming pretty late into the fight, right? It's been used after Coalescence, after their Nano, after our Shatter, right? It's just been being used really late in the fight, and then also because we've used it so late, we're already down a bunch of people. Like, we already lost
Yeah.
2 people, and then we lose our, like, probably the best Nano target we have on our team would be, like, the Reinhardt, right? And we lose that Nano target that we could have potentially just plopped it on. So,
Mhm.
what? Okay, good
He was
nade on her.
Sigma before. Would you
Oh, yeah,
rather
yeah.
throw it on Sigma or Reinhardt? Or I
Oh,
mean, or Sigma
or
or
Zarya?
Zarya? I had a lot of trouble here.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't have any good nano
Mhm.
targets at this point because Ash typically does. I don't think she can one shot headshot with nano, and there was a tracer before the
I
junk, which
believe
would have
that
been
she
fine. But
can, but it's not worth it. You don't nano targets who require mechanical skill or skill
yeah,
shots. You nano targets that have consistent output and that are easy to get value with. That's just how it
hmm
works, even up to a pro level. It doesn't. That's not even like something that to do with just people having bad aim, but like even especially when people don't have the best aim. Um,
yeah,
so essentially, that's where you get into a couple different things. First off, um, this is something that we should be thinking about at the very beginning of the game, not when we're in the middle of a fight, right? So that's where you get into something where you call target priority when it comes to, or sorry, a nano priority, right? So at the
yeah,
very beginning of the round, you take a look at your team comp, right? You have a good like 40 seconds while you're just spawning into the game and you have nothing else to do. Take a look at your
uh
team comp and you basically go like 1, 2, 3. These are the best things to nano, right? Who's the first best target? Who's the second best target? Who's the third best target, right? And then from there, right, you decide that way, just in case, like, let's say the first best target doesn't have their ultimate or is dead, then or isn't in a good position, then you go to number 2 and then number
hmm
3 for the same reason, right? That way you're not panicking and thinking about that in the middle of a fight, and it's going to allow you to land nanos much more effectively on the right targets, not on panic targets, right?
yeah,
Now, in this instance, what would those 3 be? Probably would say honestly, no. Actually, I would say 3. Actually, I was about to say I wouldn't say 3, but now I'm gonna change my mind.
okay,
In this instance, you're probably just gonna be best off on the tanks. Tanks usually inherently just get the most value because even like these tanks aren't the best tanks to nano, but they still are decent tanks to nano. Um, so, for example, right, the benefit that tanks get out of it is that they have the most health to heal up. So the healing gets its max effect on a tank. You also get the max value out of the damage reduction on a tank, as they're going to be taking the most damage. So you get the most value out of taking less damage out of that. Also, you get most of the time they have the most consistent abilities, or not, I guess fire, right, out of any of the characters, which means that they're gonna get the most value. So think of like Reinhardt and Monkey. It's very, very difficult for them to miss their shots, so
yeah,
therefore they're gonna get a whole lot of value out of getting all of their damage buffed. Um, so now that we have that in mind, right? I wouldn't nano Ash, because she's skill shot. I wouldn't nano Junkrat because he's kind of skill shot,
uh
and he's just not very good to nano. I wouldn't nano Bob. Nano Bob can be good, but I wouldn't nano Bob because they have an Ana and a Sombra, two of the biggest counters to a Bob,
okay,
because they can hack and sleep him, which is just disable two ultimates for half of the duration. So now we're left with 3 people, right? We have Mora and then the tanks, right? In respective order, I would probably go Nano Zarya if she has high charge as number 1. The You have to have the condition there, because if she's not high charge, she's useless. If she's at anything below like 50, she's not going to do anything with it. If she's above 50, now she Nano is going to be worth it on her. Sigma, the best time you're going to be nanoing Sigma is if, of course, he needs it because he's like critical, or right when he's ulting. Because when she's ulting, it's going to be the easiest time for him to actually hit his shots because they
uh
can't move, right? So that's going to be the most consistent time to nano him. And then Mora, when she has her ultimate, might be okay if you need it on her, but I'd probably prioritize the tanks first. So that would be kind of the nano priority list: is Zarya, Sigma, Moria with a whole lot of conditions. Like you said, these guys aren't the best, but you kind of still have that priority list, and you want to be looking for situations to use it on them. Like, for example, like right here when Sigma dies, it'd probably be a good time to just nano the Sigma, because I don't think that Zarya's. First off, he's ulting here, so that'd be decent.
yeah.
Secondly, I don't think that Zarya's very high charge at the moment. F6. She's 5. She's 5, so you're not going to get any value out of that. Moria doesn't have ult, and Sigma's also low here in a second. Critical HP, right? So we just
Yeah,
look down real quick, plop a nano on Sigma, healing value, damage reduction value, damage boost value.
I missed quite a bit there, quite a bit there, and I also realized I used my nano. I've had that nano since the first point, and
Yep. So this
uh,
is, if we don't use it here, that's now fight number 3 that we haven't used it,
yeah,
right? Which in 3 fights we
at the
can
end of
get.
it too.
What you say?
It was at the end of the fight as well,
Mhm.
so it's not.
Yep.
You're powered up.
Oh,
Get
okay,
in
so we did
there.
actually use it here.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that's getting into a whole other thing is because this is uh pretty much a lost fight. I probably say this is like close to maybe being it's maybe winnable. So let's just honestly I'm not gonna go into it now, but so that's fine. Punch her, get her. All right. So wait till this fight ends, and then I'll have some stuff to talk about. Nice contest,
Get here.
nice shots. Instead of dancing out in the open, use the cart as cover. We're here. I like that we go for the kill in the Hanzo, but instead of just jumping around the cart, just
Uh,
hide behind it and use it to block out their damage. That way you're just not taking as much damage. And then let's just wait for this to end, and then we'll do strengths and weaknesses real quick.
okay.
Um, all right, so strengths and weaknesses. What are we looking with? We're gonna do a priority list of kind of like what's the highest priority versus lowest priority things to work on. And then we'll get into more of that at the very end. Um, but for now, ability usage looking decently high because especially I honestly sleeps I honestly no not a really big problem with sleeps. We've hit it. I think we've been using them pretty consistently. We've been hitting them pretty consistently. But nades is the big one that we're wanting to look to work on. As
Hmm.
particularly just landing them is the thing that we want to work on. So in general, honestly, not the worst that I've seen with abilities. But in comparison to the rest of your kit, I'd probably say it's like a medium for now, medium priority. Um, ultimate usage looking like a little bit of a higher priority at the moment because we just haven't used it super effectively so far.
Yeah.
So maybe I'd put that at like a medium or medium high. Um, now mechanics of just going pew pew and shooting at stuff completely fine. Been hitting shots very consistently, and you don't have a big problem with actually mechanically doing things. Though the scoping, knowing when to scope does go into that category, so that maybe
Hmm.
puts it at like a low or low to medium for the moment. Um, yeah, lower, low to medium. Now, awareness and positioning. Positioning. Let's go over that first. Honestly, positioning for the most part looking really solid. That's another kind of I'd put that in the similar to mechanics with like how good you are at it just generally. But the big thing is that I would say two things. First off, we're not taking in as many off angles as we could be, and we're not rotating in between fights like we did, like we should have, like as it is discussed beforehand. And then the other
Hmm.
thing I would say is kind of I don't say too often to other people. Like I probably say this one's a unique one. You're kind of underutilizing the high grounds that we're taking. Like we have really good positioning. Like we have the high ground that we have up here. Like, but we just like you saw, like we just kind of passed up on the opportunity to throw the nade, right? And we
Yeah.
had the opportunity, like over here when we were on this high ground, we had like four different nades we could have gone for. Yet we kind of missed all of them, right? So it's kind of like
Hmm.
we have the good positioning, yet we're underutilizing it because we're not getting effective needs off from it. So positioning as a whole, going into around the medium, just because you're really good at actually taking the spots for the most part, but there are a lot of different areas that you're struggling with. And then finally, awareness. Haven't awareness is one of the slower to diagnose ones. I don't think we've talked a ton about awareness. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, there is a little bit more. Because we missed the big nade, we missed the fact that Sigma was critical, and we could have nanoed
Hmm.
him. We haven't been paying attention to our ultimate charge and the fact that we have had nano for 3 fights.
Yep.
And then we also there was that time where Hanzo like snuck up like an inch from us and headshot us. So awareness for now, we'll put that in the middle. So right now it's looking like we have a bunch like kind of tied up for just average, that or inconsistent. That as we go, we'll start to see like them pull apart a little bit. I mean. Maybe we will. Sometimes they just kind of sit there in the middle, but we'll probably start to see them pull apart, and you'll start to see some things be more important than others. Here we kind of run on the open. That is one thing I'd say. Just keep in mind. So, um, mm,
Yeah.
just good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. Here we kind of run out in the open,
Fame.
and then therefore we're just gonna get shot at and killed.
Yeah, that was probably. Sometimes I just turn my brain off and I start
Yeah.
and I'll play unnecessarily like aggressive or
Mm.
um,
This is also
Just not
time.
making any sense.
There's also time where we should probably be like during this entire time. There's just not much happening, so we probably
Mhm.
should be using it to rotate up to the high grounds, right? Just back to the good positioning, just above where we're standing right now, right? Good angles, good survivability, good visibility.
Take your medicine.
Is there a thing is like as the game goes on, like positioning gets a little bit worse and like gameplay or ability usage just kind of gets a little bit more loose, I would say. Like, I'd say I start out some games strong, and then like I'll throw positioning out the window at the later the match goes on.
Yeah, that
Because
seems.
like I guess because like
Mm,
more pressure is building on like having to like say they get the first point here,
mm.
I'll be pressured to get the first point on the next round as quickly or more quickly than they did, and then I might forget to use you know
Yeah, okay. So, well, then, if pressure's the problem, we want to just make sure we're not thinking that far. Like, play in the moment, right? Don't think about I need to, get points. Just think about how can I stop them this point.
yeah.
When it comes to positioning, the big thing is just you have like in between fights, you have like roughly 20 seconds, which is a absurdly easy amount of time to like just change up your positioning. Like we have no like really in the two fights that I pointed out, you don't really have an excuse to say, well, I couldn't have rotated here because we had a ton of time. Like right here, there's a ton of time where we just kind of sit in when we could just be rotating, right? Where we could just be
Yeah.
walking, right? And then that just means that by the time the fight starts, we just don't have the best positioning. So it's just kind of also about managing our time, prioritizing the right things, making sure that we're not for dropping positioning as the fight's going or like as the game's going, right? But we're keeping it up consistently. All right, and then now we're just kind of out of line of sight of some people. Yeah, nade kind of comes late in the fight. Yeah, I think probably say the big thing there was just positioning wasn't the best as the fight was going.
Okay.
It'll take more than that to keep me out of the fight. I've seen worse. You're going to live.
Fire at will.
Yeah, this is the range at which the scope tech is going to be useful.
Okay.
Also just keep in mind that on Ana, on average, she doesn't like to prioritize a long range. So like this is something I think that confuses a couple people. Um, Ana is probably the second only character in the game that can play as far as like Widowmaker can and be all right. Be with her gun, and that's where that's the difference is that it's abilities versus gun usage. She has her scope, she has lowered sensitivity, she has no fall off. Therefore, she's good to play at whatever range she wants with her gun. Whereas like most other characters, like they prefer medium range. Like even Ash, even like McCree, Hanzo, they prefer medium range. But
Yeah.
why Ana prefers medium range is because of her abilities. Because it's just they are how you get carrying potential, and a lot of times at this distance, you're not really going to be able to land them very effectively. So you're probably going to find more value out of being at a medium range rather than a long range. Now you don't want to be inside of them, you don't want to be at a close range, but you also don't want to be this far back because it's not going to allow you to land your abilities nearly as effectively.
Okay.
Whereas just like, let's just mix it up. Let's say we had all the time in the world to rotate. Man, we can take high ground above them here. We can take this high ground. We can, play below them and just, play over here, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we have too much pressure for that. Like I'd say it's very unlikely that they just run through our Reinhardt and kill us because we have our front line in front of us, right? All we have to do is just if we see them running at us is we just back up backwards. So it's not like positioning far away isn't going to give us too many benefits besides just make it harder to land their abilities because they're both projectiles and therefore they're harder to land at a distance, harder to predict. Also, things can block them a lot easier. People can see them coming and dodge them. People can, eat them and use abilities and shields to block them. Right? Just
Yeah.
a lot harder to hit them at a range.
I lose my off angle as well. I can't.
Yep.
Go. I keep you
Yeah.
safe.
Off angles at a range don't really exist. They're usually
Yeah.
close to mid range. Oh, really nice Sneaky
Defend.
nade in from the side there. I knew that one was gonna land even before it hit, right? Because right, we snuck it in behind the shield. That's probably the first good nade I've seen us hit. Because there's a very massive difference between getting one person purple and getting 3 people purple, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people. It's literally the difference between it's 3 times the amount of value that you've gotten out of this one, four
Yeah.
times, 5 times, 6 times the amount of value, right? You just want to make sure we're going for those big nades more often. That was a really good nade.
And that's why I think that I use my nades too often because then I might miss out on an opportunity like that if I try to go for the off cooldown method. So I like,
I'd say when it comes to them, you're looking for both quantity and quality, right? You're looking
yeah,
for both of them. You don't want to settle for one or the other. If you settle for just quality, then you miss out on the fact that you could be getting out. Like let's say we took twice the amount of time to look for them. Well, now we could have had twice the amount of nades and therefore twice the amount of value, right? We could have had twice
yeah,
the amount of of purples and twice the amount of healing. Same thing with sleeps. We could have had twice the amount of sleeps, but we also don't want to focus purely on the quantity because then we just don't end up hitting anything and therefore we don't get any value. Instead, we want to focus on both of them because if we get quantity and quality both, that means that we're consistently all the time getting good quality nades, right? It's happening frequently, and the way that you do that is, how, like I said before, is you really focus on getting the good nades, and you can be thinking about how you're using your nade before you even get them, right? Your nade could be on
hmm
a 4 second cool, like on 4 seconds away from, you getting it, and you still be looking for that nade, and then land it as soon as it comes up, right? Off a cooldown while still being a really good nade. It doesn't necessarily come from using it too often. It comes from not putting enough effort into it. It comes from not thinking through it enough. It comes especially the big two, the other two big two ones that I would say is not thinking about what can block it, and also not positioning yourself to get around them. Right.
got it.
There's just a lot of different things, and I probably wouldn't say that just using them off cooldown is the reason why you're missing.
Okay.
This is going
Yeah,
to hurt.
that one's pretty good. Just you're gonna find. I think like for the most part, we're missing them a little bit at the longer ranges. I think we hit the last two, but we also missed the two before that at this longer ranges. That's just where the scoping tech is gonna be useful.
Okay.
Untitled remember.
I definitely want to practice that. It's
Yeah.
like I'm excited to use that one.
Oh, yeah, booped.
Die feeder. You're covered.
Sitting at at a low HP for a very long period of time again, so we take
hmm
damage right around here. Um, some point.
Go.
Never mind, let's get way too far back. Oh yeah, right there, right? 112 HP. We can like
Yeah.
double time speed this and just know it's 2 times this, 2 times the amount of time here. Right? Then we just go without requesting healing, without healing ourselves with nade. Right? We sit at this low HP. That means that we just get one tapped by a Hanzo nade. Right? We just want to prioritize making sure we're high health because we just go so
Yeah.
long without doing anything about it. And that's happened multiple times, which
Yep.
comes in at awareness of making sure we're paying attention.
Name. Healing in hand.
Like there, we finally did nade ourselves, but I don't even know if that was on purpose.
It was just the nade, the
Yeah.
back capping sombra.
Never.
I've noticed that issue about myself. I'll forget to heal myself or
Yeah.
ask for healing.
Which comes down to awareness of just making sure we're paying attention to our health bar, right? Which
Yeah.
we get from let's see if I can spot the next time it happens.
Right now.
No, I'm looking for something else in the moment.
Yeah.
I guess
Just a scratch. You
next time we're taking damage. I guess we'll just wait until we do take damage.
I'm cruising at 188 right now,
Yeah,
but
that
lights out. Healing in hand.
make sure we're putting effort and thought into our needs. Some of them just kind of feel like we just go, no, need, and we toss it. Alright, so here's where we get into, okay, so ball comes in, ball slams us, right? So we see a couple different things. So right now, different things to pay attention to. Right as we get slammed, first off, we see the fact that we slammed. Slammed obviously is an ability that does damage, so that's our first indication that we've taken damage. You
Yes.
also will notice that right above our crosshair, we see the damage indicator, which will tell us which direction we're taking damage, and also that we are taking damage, right? We're also about to get shot here. In a moment, you see more of those damage indicators, as well as you'll see in the top left corner of your screen here that we are taking damage, and that usually that's for some reason that's really tiny right now, but usually it's even bigger than that, where you get
Yeah.
red marks all along your screens, right? So all different indications. Also on top of that, we also hear our character going ah, right, and yelling and screaming, and there's a ball on us, and there also our health bar goes down, right? So when all of these different factors come into play, we glance at our health bar, right? We don't glance, we can glance at our health bar every once in a while, but really you don't need to glance at your health bar unless we know we've taken damage, right? Which we know that we've taken damage when we see that we take damage, right? So we glance at our health bar every time we've taken damage, and then
Mhm.
that's going to help us be more aware of it, because here we just don't pay attention to the fact that we're sitting at 98, which just means that we want to request healing, back up, grab the health pack that's like an inch from us, right? That way we are just high HP. We also,
Pagándolas luces.
yeah, that's pretty much it there. So skip.
Ready for battle.
The nano on our Reinhardt was good, and we didn't hold on to it, so that was good.
Okay.
So maybe that goes down to like a, I think we had it at a medium or medium high. We'll put it at a medium, lower to medium for now. As we see more, maybe we'll lower one more further to like a low to medium.
You're covered. Die, feeder. Get back in the fight.
Claiming the objective.
All right.
This will help.
The objective must be
Objective A captured. Escort the payload.
Securing the payload.
All right. Nothing has really happened yet. Kind of smooth sailing for the moment.
Mhm.
It's just a scratch. You'll be fine.
All right. Kind of chucked in a nade there. Didn't do too much.
Yeah, I missed my nade there.
But again, our team we're just kind of pushing cart. I'm noticing maybe I'm gonna keep an eye on sleep, but I'm noticing. Okay, we used it there.
Fire at will. Pagándolas luces.
Positioning. Make sure that we're just taking the high ground in between this fight. Probably, preferably, should be like up here, right, and or
Yeah.
over here, right. Boom, big nade, right. So that we're just there. Whereas here we're like really, really far back. Good
Should I
nano.
take
Good.
sorry. Should I take the stairs on the right there? Would that be the best way of doing that, or like try to sneak through the middle and up
Going
the
to
stairs
be
on the left?
going to be very dependent on the situation. Left side would
Yeah.
probably be much faster. Right side would be safer. Depends on when we start doing it. If we decide to, and honestly, the left side would probably just be the better way to go, just
Okay.
because it's like, especially the earlier on you do it. Like if you do it right after you won that fight, well then there's no one alive to even shoot at you, right? And you're good. And if you if you tried to do the right side now, it'd take you so long to do the whole twisty windy wrap around that yeah, you could probably do that after the fight ends. Honestly, either or works once the fight ends, which is like because you have so much time to rotate. But
Yeah.
if we would definitely not want to try doing it like right now because that'd take an insanely long time, and by the time that happened, we'd be done the fight.
Okay.
Now here, good nano. Honestly, nanos have been looking a lot more solid now that we're not holding onto it for so long. We're using it. We used it in good timing. We used it like as soon as we got it there, which is good. You're pretty much like just how nano works is you use it in any fight that you have it, as long as the fight's not been won or lost yet, which is
Get in there.
good situation. So now we're bumping down nano usage to like a low to medium priority, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's just the one-time thing out of 3. Yep. Whereas positioning, I think, is one of the ones that's taking a little bit higher and is maybe moving up to like a medium to higher high, actually.
Okay. I
Just
feel more.
because, yeah. Go
I
ahead.
think I feel more comfortable in defense, like
Yeah.
especially because like at the start of most games I know where Anna's best at, but once the map you know dynamically changes, I'll kind of not know when to position
Yeah.
because there's so many different places.
I'd probably say that the biggest thing that we're struggling with at the moment is just kind of the fact that we're not rotating in between fights. It's kind of like we're just not acknowledging that there's a gap of like 15 seconds, 20 seconds where there's nothing at
Yeah.
all happening, which is where we should be rotating. Besides that, I think we have a solid grasp on where is good. We've already talked a lot about it. Just to re-emphasize, most of the time, high grounds whenever they're an option are good,
Okay.
right? High grounds give you survivability. Characters can't get up to you. Most characters in the game can't. On top of that, you can also just back away from the ledge, and they all act as natural cover, so they can see us. They can't see us, right? They see us,
Yeah.
can't see us, right? All acts as natural cover, which is additional survivability. You can stay alive very easily. They all act as off angles if it's right above them, which is going to be really good for a character like Ana. On top of that, it gives you a ton of visibility. From like this high ground, we can see like literally like everything, right? But when we're on a low ground, we can't see nearly as much, and we can't see any of the high ground. No high ground, nothing over there. Whereas when we're like up here, we can just rotate over here real quick. We can see over there, right? When we're up here, we can see that side, this side, right, and all of the high ground. Down here, we can't see over there. We can't see over there. We can't see up on the high ground, right? Just tons of visibility. So high ground's really great. Rotate there in between fights when it's an option. Um, Also, on top of that, just look to not be out in the open, and you should be golden. Try not to just be out in the open so that the enemy team can shoot at you, and then that's just pretty much positioning, right?
Got it.
Now off angles and high grounds aren't always going to be an option, and when they're not, just stick with your team, and you'll be fine.
It's high time.
Oof. All right. Okay, so why don't we exit out there real quick? So so you ordered the notes, so that's fine that we were slightly late exiting there. So
Sure.
I usually at the very end here go over a quick review over everything we talked about, and then go over the main points, and then wrap up the session from there. Since I usually start that like I give it 8 minutes, but it's fine because you got notes. So I usually do a shorter one anyways, so people have notes. So I'll just do
Okay.
really the main points and elaborate a little bit into the main points here. Which we were on. I'm blanking. We're on right.
Never stop
So
fighting for
ability
what you
usage,
believe in.
right? Pretty decently important here. Though there's a lot of things that go, the extra that go into it, right? Ability
Yeah.
usage, big one is our nade, right? Sleep is pretty alright.
Lights
Didn't
out.
have much to say about it. Nade usage, I like they're going for the anti-nades, and I like they're using them both off a cooldown. The issue is that we're just not hitting our nades, right? So a couple different things. First off, nade tech, go for this. Also, make sure, I didn't talk about this, but just make sure we're aiming at the feet in between people. We're not trying to hit them directly because that's more difficult, and it also is going to hit more people that way when you're aiming at the feet in between as many people as possible. Um,
Uh-huh.
Besides that, make sure we're trying to dodge the 4 different obstacles, right? Our team, tanks, shields, and abilities, and then finally, like just solid objects, so we're not just hitting those things, right? Make sure we're putting a lot of effort
Feeling
into them
sleepy?
and focus, right? You don't just put,
You disappoint
half a
me.
second. We're not going shoot, heal, shoot. Oh yeah, nade, right? That's not how it
Yeah.
works. Instead, of what our brain should be looking like while we're playing is we're going. Okay, it's on 5 seconds. Shoot, heal, shoot. Okay, I'm looking for a nade. Okay, I'm shooting and healing still. I'm looking for the nade. Okay, they're ready. They're lined up. Okay, I'm going for the nade. Right? It's like this. It's kind of we're putting a lot more thought and energy into it. We're thinking through while
Right.
actually doing other things. It can take us like it can take us 2 seconds to land a nade, but also the big thing is that you don't want to just completely stop. You don't want to just stand here, sit still, and just look for a nade for 4 seconds, right? That's not how it works. Instead, we're doing things while also thinking about it. All right, now moving on. Here, actually, I'm just wrapping. I forgot. I'm doing the review right now. Am I not? I forgot. We're just doing the main points. Main points, right? So number one, biggest thing is positioning. Positioning, a lot of different things. Take high grounds, take off angles. Make sure we're doing it in the middle of fights is the big one, right? And then that's
Yeah.
just consistently make sure we're taking position, or we're not out in the open, but we're using cover, right? And then all of those just happen so often that it was just, that was the biggest thing, and that really affected our ability to land nades effectively, and do things and see our team, right? Besides that, number two is coming in at probably, let's say, awareness. Now, there's a bunch of different things that go into that as well. Pay attention to, where your team is, where the enemy team is. Pay attention to health bars. Pay attention to, when there's big nades and what things can block your nades, right? Just a lot of different things. Pay attention to your ultimate and your health bar, the health bar too, right? What is your health at, right? Because there's a lot of times where that came into play, right? Number three is going to be your ability usage, right? Just landing those. We just talked about all that. Number four is going to be your ultimate usage, with just making sure we're not, holding on to it, and we're thinking about target priority with it, right? Or
Yeah.
ultimate priority, right? And then also use at the beginning of fights, and then finally, last one being just your mechanics, and generally really good. Just make sure we're using scopes at the right distances, and that's pretty much it, right? Do you have any questions about anything we've talked about?
More of a general question. Like,
Mhm.
a lot of these things are gonna be improved just with reviewing and whatnot. But do you have any like workshops or anything that you like
You need
use to
adaptive
like
vision.
improve as a player overall? Like getting ready for playing competitive. Like, would you recommend like do like 5 minutes of aim training or something like that?
Yeah,
Like
so aim training can be helpful, but honestly, like at the moment, like with your current aim level, I wouldn't say that aim training is really something that's a priority for you. That's why we go with a priority list, because aim,
okay,
though of course aim can always be improved upon, you're just going to find more value out of improving on the other things, which like positioning, for example, which is just a happening like almost throughout every single aspect of your gameplay very consistently. That's a big thing that's affecting how you do things, right? Like infecting like pretty much every aspect of your gameplay. Whereas aim really isn't. In your case, like you have above average aim, you have pretty decent aim, which isn't perfect, but it's not ML7 aim, but it's also
yeah,
not something that needs a ton of work. So no problem at all with aim trainers, but like you can use them, just make sure it's not outweighing your actual playtime, or
okay.
even being too much for your actual playtime. But I wouldn't prioritize too much on them. Workshop modes, no, there's not a ton of good workshop modes. Like if you get what was your SR again?
I'm right at 2500 right now.
2500. Um,
Yeah.
once you get maybe to like a master's level, you can go to workshop modes, or maybe like diamond or master, something like that. Then you could maybe go and like learn some like specific nade spots where you have some codes, and you can look those up. Where
Uh-huh.
there's codes where you can like basically figure out where a nade's going by like looking up in the air and lining it up effectively, and then it'll show you like where
Uh-huh.
it's gonna land, and then that way you can like learn some specific spots. But honestly, that's like too advanced, and there's more important things to learn at the moment than to learn something that advanced. On That's not really super necessary. That's the type of thing that becomes necessary when you're really good at the game already, not when you're still learning all this other stuff, right?
Got it.
Um, so besides that, honestly, no, not really. Like if you're learning to, if you're trying to just warm up for comp, play.
You need
Really, the big thing you're
adaptive
warming up is
vision.
just your mechanics. So plays, an FFA or a quick play, to warm up, or some custom games. So some of the ones that are more, you know, mechanics intense. So like try hard FFA, Widow Headshot,
Yeah.
4v4 Nanoblade. Some things that just get your blood pumping. That way you're just warmed up for the day, right?
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Okay, no other questions?
That I think that's it for right now.
All right.